The first situation that we can use will in is when we need to make a quick decision, a very, very rapid decision. So here are a few examples. For example, if we're in a room and someone says, "It's hot in here." Okay, I will turn on the AC. Or I'll turn on the AC. Another one is if it's in a very serious situation. For example, one of your friends says, "I think I've broken my leg." Okay, stay calm. I'll call an ambulance. As you can see from both of those examples, the speaker had to make a very quick decision as to what to do. So there was no time to plan anything or any of the actions that the speaker wanted to do. The next situation where we can use will is for future actions that are decided at the time of speaking. Maybe someone will ask you a question that you haven't thought about and have to think of the answer at that moment in question. For example, what are you going to do tonight? I think I'll watch a movie and order a pizza. Or, are you going to Steve's party later? I won't have time. I have to finish this report. As you can see, we use the contracted version I'll instead of I will, as it sounds a lot more natural. Also, when we use the negative, we don't say will not, we usually say I won't, as again, it just sounds much more natural. Another situation that we would use will in is when we are talking about a future action that we are not 100% sure will actually happen. To help us express our uncertainty of not being sure, we usually use two adverbs to show the levels of uncertainty, and they are possibly and probably. Probably is used to describe something that is likely to happen and is stronger than possibly. We would use possibly when we want to express more uncertainty. For example, if you are going on holiday to the UK or to America or wherever, and you are not sure that you are going to visit some places, you would actually use these to help you express yourself. For example, are you going to meet Pete when you're in London? I'll probably meet him on my last day if he's not too busy. Or, where are you going to buy your souvenirs? We'll possibly go to the local markets. As you can see from those examples, when we use the positive form, we use the subject plus the contracted form of will, followed by the adverb, subject, will, and adverb. However, when we use the negative form, we use the subject followed by the adverb, then using the contracted version of will not, subject, adverb, and won't. Let's take a look at a couple of negative examples. Are you going to visit Manchester? We probably won't have time to visit Manchester. Or, when are you going to get your new car? I possibly won't get it until next month. Another situation where we use will and won't is when we want to make a promise to someone. We can promise to do an action, or we can promise to tell someone some information, or we can also promise to not tell someone some information. So let's take a look at some examples. So the first one that we have here is, don't worry, I'll keep it a secret. I won't tell anyone, I promise. As you can see from those two, they actually mean the same thing. However, we just used a little bit of a different version in each of them. The first one was, of course, using the positive, using I will, and the second one was using the negative of won't. Let's have a look at a few more examples. Here we go. I'll do my best to get it for you. I won't let you down. You won't be disappointed. Again, these are some great promises for us to make to friends or family, and we always use will to make these promises. On the other hand, We can also use them to issue threats. And yes, threats are like promises, but they are usually seen as a negative. And they can often include things such as harm to someone or something. They also use a conditional so that the threat will only be carried out if something happens. We can again use will and won't in this situation. So let's take a look at some examples of threats that we can use. Okay, let's take a look at number 1. I'll break your nose if you touch her again. Alright, it sounds very angry. Alright, let's have a look at the second one. If you steal from me again, I'll cut your fingers off. And the third one, I'll call the police if you come here again. So all of those threats were using will. And as you can see, they all use the if conditional as well. So of course, if that situation didn't happen, then the threat also wouldn't happen as well. But let's have a look at the next part, and what we're going to do in the next part is use the negative version to also issue some threats as well. So let's take a look at the first one. I won't take responsibility if you break anything. That means it's not my fault if you break something. I won't pay for it. And the second one, I won't let you see our child if you continue drinking. So again, even with the negative version of will, using won't, we can still use the if conditional to help us with issuing threats there. But again, issuing threats is quite a negative thing. So I would only say do it if you really, really have to. Otherwise, it's better not to use them, of course. So now let's move on to using going to. So when do we use this? Well, the biggest difference between going to and will is that we use going to for things that are already planned. Maybe you've written them down in your schedule or your diary, and you've got your plans to meet your friends or go to the dentist. Those are the times where we would use going to. Also, when we use going to, it is quite a stronger expression. So we often think that we won't make changes to those plans. It's quite a fixed plan. So let's take a look at some examples of using going to with future plans. Let's take a look at the first one. I'm going to Switzerland tomorrow morning. The second one, he's going to give a presentation on how to sleep better. So there you go. We can use them as going to with a future action that we already planned. We can also use the negative version of not going to and talk about our future plans that we are not going to. Sometimes we can use, of course, the contractions such as isn't or aren't, etc. So let's take a look at the first example here. They aren't going to buy a house. Okay, so as you can see, using the contraction of aren't. The next one, she's not going to get a pay rise. As you can see here, we have a little bit of a difference one of using gonna instead of going to. So let's have a look at where do we use gonna instead of going to. So as you can see, in some cases, we can use gonna as a contracted version of going to. It's quite popular in casual situations. We use gonna before a verb, so before an action word. For example, I'm gonna buy a new phone. The verb being buy, of course. However, we don't use it in front of a noun because it just won't make sense. For example, if we say, I'm gonna London tonight, there is no sense made in that sentence. We actually need the verb in there. So, for that sentence to make any sense, we have to use either going to or gonna go to. For example, I'm going to London tonight. is the perfect example of using going to. However, if we want to use the contracted version, gonna, here is how we can use it. I'm gonna go to London tonight. There we go. We've got the verb in the place, so we can actually use the contracted version for that sentence. As a tip, I suggest practicing the contracted versions when you get the chance to speak, because it makes you sound much more natural, especially in tests such as the IELTS speaking tests. It will give you a much higher band because you sound much more natural. However, if you use gonna, I would only suggest using it in casual situations. Don't use it for formal or business situations, as it's not so appropriate. So let's have a look at how this can be used in a conversation. You will see two people talking about their future plans and using will, going to, etc., all within one conversation. Hi, hey, how are you? I'm great, thanks. You? I'm well, thank you. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to Kyoto for 3 days. Nice. Who are you going with? I'm going with my friend from high school. We're going to visit the old temples and shrines. That sounds great. Are you going to visit your friend? We'll probably visit her on the last day if she isn't busy. How about you? What are you going to do this weekend? Oh, I have a busy weekend. I'm going to New York on business. Really? Why are you going there for business? I'm going to give a presentation about my company at a conference. Oh, good luck with that. Will you go sightseeing? Yes, we will probably go sightseeing in the evenings. I want to see the Statue of Liberty, but I won't go shopping because it's always too busy in New York. I see. Well, have a great weekend. Bye. You too. See you soon. Now there is one final term that we can add to the two that we've just looked at, and that is will be. And of course, many people will be confused between will and will be because they sound very similar. However, there is a big difference between will and will be. Will be is actually a much stronger version of will because it is one of the strongest expressions of all. We would use this when we want to give specific details of time or location, etc. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's have a look at example number 1. I'll be waiting at the coffee shop next to the station. Second one, we'll be leaving at 3 a.m. And the third one, I'll be staying at the Hilton Hotel. I wish I could stay at the Hilton Hotel. Sounds absolutely lovely. But unfortunately, it is way out of my price range. Okay, so generally speaking, we use this term when the plan can't be changed or it's very difficult for us to change. Such as an example is a flight schedule. We don't really make the changes to the flight schedule. Once we book our flights, that's it. We are set with our flight schedule. Usually it doesn't change and we don't want it to change. We plan around that flight schedule. So using will be means that it's very, very, very much in place and not going to be changed. Here are a couple of examples of this. Our flight will be leaving at 10:30 a.m. and we'll be taking the 8:30 flight. Alright, so let's take a look at all of these terms being used within one conversation. So you'll be hearing, of course, will, going to, and of course, using will be. And also you'll hear the negative versions too. Hi, hey, how are you? Not too bad, thanks. You? Yeah, I'm good. What are you going to do for the summer holidays? I'm going to Disneyland Florida with the family. We'll be leaving on Monday. Sounds lovely. How long are you going for? We're only going for a week. We'll be back next Tuesday. Are you going to Busch Gardens? We probably won't go there because the kids are too young. But we'll probably go to Animal Kingdom instead because they love animals. How about you? What are you going to do? I'm going to Glastonbury Music Festival and I'll be staying with my friend from university. He lives near there. That's awesome. Are you going to drive there? No, I'll probably take the train or coach. Depends which is cheaper. Well, make sure you send me some videos of the bands that you see. Yeah, I'll send you some, I promise. Have a great trip. You too. Enjoy the festival. I'll see you when I get back. See ya. Now it's your turn to practice. Please give it a try and write some of your future plans in the comments below. For example, your plans for tomorrow, your plans for summer vacation, your plans for the weekend, etc.